welcome to the show, everyone. We are live. Welcome to VodPod Media. My name is Maximo, your host. I use pronouns he, him, his, and I'm in a great mood this evening. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm sitting here with my family that's chiming in here all the way from Austin. It's so close yet so far away. And it's just a great night to be alive. You know, we love living, we love celebrating, we love having fun. So shout out to all of our viewers, wherever you may be watching from. Chime in, drop us a comment, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share. Subscribe to VodPod Media because every Tuesday, you know, we are taking over the airwaves here, taking over the internet to give you the best programming. And not only that, we're celebrating Heritage Month. And I want to hear from y'all. We're gonna jump right in with the founders, the creators of the Institute of Chicano Psychology, Chicana, Chicanx Psychology, the depth of what it means to be Chicanx, Chicano, all of those amazing things here, because you're getting a glimpse of what I think the majority of places should be doing during Heritage Month, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that say they care about quote unquote Hispanic culture, but I wonder if it misses the mark when it comes to the people and respecting and honoring the people, honoring the land, honoring the sacrifices that people have made for people like us to have the opportunity to do what we do. And it's interesting. I think I heard you, Manuel, mention one time that our people have always been doing this. Our people have always been doing this work, right? But somehow we got lost along the way. So introducing, and I know I'm going to let y'all give the grand introduction to yourselves tonight, because I can't do y'all justice. But thank you so much for being here, folks. Please feel free to introduce yourselves for our audience, for our viewers that do not know you. And it's just a true blessing to have y'all here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maximo. It's great to be here with you. It's great to be with family. And so I'll let Jessica start.
Me presento como Jessica Tlazoltiani Ochoa Zamarripa. I present myself as Jessica Tlazoltiani Ochoa Zamarripa, here in a good way, to spend time talking about our heritage, our well-being, our history, our strengths. Yes, we have the cultural wounds, but we have the cultural strengths. I am a moon dancer, so I am a keeper of our ancestral ways. I'm a mental health advocate and a cultural educator. And most importantly, for me, I center that I am a mother of 3 children. So that is a social justice position if you are raising BIPOC children. So that is what I'll say about myself for now.
And my name is Manuel Samaripa. I'm a Chicano psychologist, and me and Jessica together, as you said, 10 years back or a little more, came together and put together what we call the Institute of Chicanx Psychology, with the intent of talking about not just, mental health in our community is so important, but also broader wellness, and connecting the stuff that we know in the mental health community with a cultural lens, with our ancestral ways, and just putting it all together, because it's not a one size fit all, and I think for our community, just talking about the traditional mental health will leave out a lot. We include it, but I think we take a broader approach, so we can include more of our community, get them in the discussion about what it means to not only be well, but how can we be well and be proud of who we are at the same time? I think those two things are things that we really try to always weave in together.
Yeah, and wellness means a lot of things, right? And I've read on some of your all's websites and some of your work, it's working towards the cultural, social, mental, emotional, spiritual liberation and healing of our people, and that is deep. I feel like, for me personally, I don't think I fully understood healing until I had a physical injury. I had a physical injury to a knee that required surgery. And after about a week or two, I fell into a depression. And I felt like I was lost. I felt like I had lost a part of myself. I was sitting on that couch, just becoming sad and deep feeling of despair. And then it dawned on me that that's what our people have been feeling for centuries, just by our existence.
That's right. Right. Yeah. It was a microcosm of a larger experience, that you had when that happened. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a good example.
And ever since colonization, really, ever since, the Spanish invasion, right? One of the Puerto Rican psychologists, Lilian Comas Diaz, talks about post-colonization stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of post-traumatic stress disorder, she talks about post-colonization stress disorder.
Yeah.
And that widens the lens for us. We see that, we have ancestral trauma, historical trauma, relational trauma, intergenerational trauma, and then our own personal lived experiences. And then so what do we do, right? Well, then we come with our cultural strengths. We come with our ancestral gifts. We come with all of the abilities that we have as people who walk with our ancestors. That's what we do in response.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to make sure that we see the stuff that happens to us on a couple of levels. Like, you had a physical injury, and some of us have mental health struggles, and we have issues in families, community, and all those are that. And we also see them as cultural wounds as well. They're also cultural wounds because we share kind of in that pain. There's a thread that's an invisible kind of thread, and so we try to see it as it's kind of a cultural wound, and we dive into, all right, so what are our cultural strengths?
Right.
What are the strengths that we've always had, and let's bring those forth. Let's talk about them. Let's get together and really kind of share with each other what those strengths are. And people love it. They love doing that. They always get emotional about it, and they not that you always have to, but it's just like, wow, I finally able to talk about this. And you talk about this a lot. It's like, we don't realize what we're missing, or that's not exactly how it's kind of like.
Right. Yeah. It's like, things that we didn't know that we never had, or that we haven't had for a long time. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to reconnect and decolonize and believe that we have worth and value, and that we deserve to have access to resources and graduate high school and college and raise healthy children. To make those beliefs is to undo little by little the internalized depression, right?
Yeah.
Which runs generations and generations deep.
Absolutely.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about what it means to be Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx, right? Because that's a whole deal in itself, right? That I feel like some people understand, some people don't, some people wonder.
Yeah. I mean, I think of course for us, I always like to distinguish there's the Webster's definition, Webster's dictionary definition, and then there's kind of the community idea. Because a lot of people don't know that Chicano's in the dictionary, right? And you just look it up, and it's very simple: a person of Mexican descent. So that's a very kind of simple thing, right? But I think for us, we, like many, we see it as the culmination of our experiences as a people that, where our roots started in what we now call Mexico, and then experiences of now in this country, but trying to stay rooted in all of that wisdom, including our ancestral, our indigenous wisdom, and trying to make that part of us. Because when we talk about reconnecting, it's not like, okay, let's go back 500 years and pretend none of this happened, right? No. Right. I mean, we can reconnect, and still we bring all of those collective experiences that we've had, as a people over these 500 years. And so I think for us, it's really about staying rooted in that. But I also want to say, like, I know there's always a lot of discussion about how we self-identify, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a matter of where you grow up and what people say, right? Because you go deep South Texas and other places, and people are proud to be Hispanic. They're proud, and that's the term that they grew up using. But if you ask what they're proud of, I mean, they're proud of a lot of the same things we're talking about, right? You grow up with a sense of emotional attachment to a certain label. And so sometimes if that's what you grow up with, you know, you feel all that pride in your culture and your people connected to a certain label. So I always kind of want to acknowledge that because
Right. Because that's a way to accept everybody using different terms like Latino, Hispanic, which if you study the terms, that those were terms put on us to limit us, right? To limit our uniting and our upward movement. So if you don't know that and you just have that emotional connection because you grew up with that word, that's fine. We talked about identity for Mexican Americans, for raza, for Tejanos, for our people, and it took 3 2-hour panel discussions to even scratch the surface. So there's already 7 hours recorded on the subject, right?
Yeah.
So it's part of why it's hard for us to unite as a people, right? Because there's stigmas attached to the word Chicano. There's stigmas. Some people don't like the word raza. Again, more internalized depression as a peoples. We think it means low class. It just depends where you're coming from. But for us, we claim that word as a powerful word because we're a powerful people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful word. It has a lot of connotations to it. I find many people that are coming back to it, but I don't think it should be. People should find offense to it. I personally identify as Chicano because I don't know my indigenous roots. Right, somewhere along the way we've lost that. Right, I mean, you could go back a couple of generations. And, it'll say, right. I mean, I know a lot of our people are doing the ancestry.com, right. Or the DNA kits to try to find out who their people were generations and generations ago. Right now, could I potentially go back and look at some court county document records and find out who the ancestors were? Right. Because, I mean, if you look at me personally, I have a Spanish name, right. My last name is Spanish. My first name is Spanish. So how did we lose some of that, and how do we go back to finding, right? How do you do some of that research?
Yeah.
Good question. That's a question that always gets asked every single workshop that we have. Did you want to answer that first?
Well, I think you're going back to what I was trying to say earlier, Maximo, which is exactly that. I mean, when, like a lot of peoples, when they've been colonized and conquest, has happened, the winners, right? They've tried to put their culture on top, which and so it kind of disrupted all of our indigenous affiliations because they wanted like one identity as what became a Mexican identity through the lens of that colonization. So we got disrupted, which was a very different experience from, for example, our African American relatives. That when people came to what is now the United States, there was a clear distinction with the races, right? So that history evolved with keeping families separate, right? The history of our people when the Spanish came was a military invasion, right? Yeah. So it was completely different. And so when we say like reconnecting, we may never really know exactly what particular people, but we do what we can. I mean, someone told me it's kind of like our past is like a mirror that was broken, and some of the pieces are lost. They flew, and so we put together what we can, and we move forward, and that's what we try to do.
Yeah. And also, though, we have to remember that we have Spanish names now, but we have to remember not to place our indigenous ancestors in the past necessarily, because we're alive now. So we are the dream of all those ancestors that came together to create exactly who we are. We're their dream. They're here watching us, they're present. So we are Native peoples now. Even if through colonization, one of the mechanisms is separating us from our identities and from who who our peoples are, we still know that we're Mesoamerican Native peoples from this continent starting out in the Southwest on this land that we now call the United States, right now with the imaginary border. And we are Anahuaca people. That refers to the people of this continent. Sem Anahuaca, or Anahuaca for the southern part. So that's a place to start. You can say, I'm Anahuaca.
Yeah, and y'all verbalize that so well. And it's reassuring and it's healing to even hear y'all state that, because as you all know, which is why y'all are in this industry, why y'all are doing this work, while they're filling this void, is because I would make an argument based on all my travels, based on all the people that I've seen and met, based on us getting into the grassroots where our people reside, right? Because we go to where our people are at, is that the masses, I would say, it's hard to say this, but I would say that a lot of our people are unwell. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, when we talk mentally, physically, spiritually, socially, it's not all their fault, right? But when you're dealing with some of these factors, like, historical oppression, right? You're dealing with, institutional racism. You're dealing with poverty that we're fighting. You think about the health factors. Listen, why is it in our barrios there's a liquor store where you can get cheap cigarettes and cigars versus healthy foods to nourish us and to have us thinking straight? Many of our people, for a lack of better terms, self-medicate, right? And I take this on a day-to-day sort of deal, right? Because the majority of our people, and I say this all the time, and I know y'all are right with me, is that the majority and masses of our people are just looking to get by. Now, I don't have any statistics right now in front of me, but listen, we're talking about what it really is, right? Many of our people are living on houses and stilts, on cinder blocks, wondering if they can keep the lights on, if they can keep food on the table for the kids. They've got a lot of responsibilities, and they're just looking to get by.
Absolutely. Right. And that's the reality that that we have, lived for generations already, and it's frustrating as hell, because there's enough of us that know it, and there's still, that systemic blocks that just refuse to recognize that, as you're saying, it's not individuals' faults completely. You're talking about economic structures that keep families from getting enough to live well and to for their kids to be better off. That started changing, this last couple of generations, where people's kids are better off than their parents' kids. That is not what's happening anymore.
Right. People get really stuck in these cycles, and then the climate, the Western Eurocentric dominant climate of this country, with really focus individualism as opposed to collectivism, and we're a collectivistic people, right? Then they blame the people that are in poverty, who didn't have access to education, so who maybe don't know how to speak to the next generation, their children, in a way that uplifts who they are. So how are we supposed to make these shifts? Well, that's what we're all doing. That's what you're doing by having these VODs. That's what we're doing with our mental health and wellness work and the reconnecting decolonization work. This is what we're all doing. Those of us that are in this work, some of us focus on the nutrition, trying to reconnect our people that our ancestral foods were vegan, very healthy. It's a very secondary, healthy. It's a response that we have to eat these unhealthy foods. It's become a cultural, how would you word it? Not a characteristic necessarily.
A cultural pattern.
People blame the culture. Oh, well, these people are poor. These people aren't educated. These people don't eat well. These people don't take care of themselves. But in reality, it's in a response to all these, invisible systems, the colonial matrix, and all of these systems affecting our daily lives that you were just talking about. So it isn't a cultural characteristic that we're unwell. It is a response to the oppressive environment that we've been in as marginalized peoples for hundreds of years.
Yeah, and that's why I think you always say, it's like, when we see that wellness, and we see our people that connect to that wellness in all this context that we're talking about is also a form of resistance.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
for us to be well with all of these structures against us, that is something to take note of. That is something to always note, that
Absolutely.
there's a lot of ways to resist, politically, education, all these ways that we see activism. Being well. Be well. That's also a form of resistance. That's also a form of, moving against these structures. Because all these structures are keeping us from achieving that in a manner that other populations, they have so much more access to. So I think that's important.
That's powerful because, as we know, health is wealth. And
yes,
if a lot of our people haven't recognized that, then they're not living up to their true potential or living up to what they could be doing, right? The healthy relationships that we should have with each other. Instead of hurting each other, we should be helping each other. Instead of, me, talking down to my brother, I should be looking to lift him up, right? I mean, we sometimes see, a lot of friendly fire or lateral violence in our own communities, right? Because our people, some of our people, and I try not to, state blanketly, right? These aren't blanket statements, but we see it a lot when, and as you know, hurt people. And it hurts the worst when it comes from our own, because our people are dealing with trauma. Our people are dealing with some real serious issues and problems.
Yes.
But what I see with what y'all are doing is y'all are healing those people. Y'all are going to those people and saying, "No, listen, brother, sister, it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
Like we can do this together." Right. And as you know, in a lot of our communities, it's seen almost as a form of weakness if you look and seek for help.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. Because we've had to deal with so much, right? It's like, forget relying on those systems. Forget all the teachers that were racist to me. Forget all the doctors that kind of didn't understand me. Forget just the people down the street that look down on me. Those are our parents and our grandparents, experiences. We internalize that. So let's not go seek help. If we go seek help, then that, as you said, it has become this narrative of kind of, well, we're weak if we need help, because we've had to be so strong, because we've had to be, steady because of all the hits we've taken, because we don't want to look weak. We don't want to look weak because we know, not too long ago, it was sometimes a matter of life and death if you cross the wrong street, if you look at the person the wrong way. Right. And so those patterns of behavior get passed down, even if those stories don't directly get passed down. So, and like Jessica always says, it's like, we're ready to always defend. We're always ready, not ready for a fight, but ready to like, hey, because we've had to go through those experiences that sometimes we turn those attitudes, toward one another because we've needed those, but we don't know kind of like that balance between, we've seen things happen to our people, so we've needed to have that be on the ready, right? Let's be on the ready. But sometimes like we don't realize that we wind up hurting each other with that sometimes.
But that is why we flip the script. That is why we talk about taking control of our own narratives. And the very base of that is trusting our own voices, trusting that what I say is real and true, that my lived experience is valid and I don't have to defend it to anybody. That's a huge step, trusting our own voices, that we're allowed to take up space. And then to expand it even more, we're allowed to flourish, not just survive, right? And then even then taking away the word allowed, because who's to say? We just do flourish, right? So connecting with these ancestral strengths that we have. We talk about our unwellness a lot, right? But we are not, we with the Institute always say, we're not going to look at the deficits of our people. We're going to look at what we come with, because we have so much resilience. We have so much, work ethic. We can make anything. We can make it through anything with very little. And now what we need to do is get to the place where we don't have to make it with very little, where we can rise up all together and know the concepts that can add to that well-being in place of guilt, shame, not enoughness,
Right.
and traumatic relationships, being harmed and then harming each other.
That's why we talk a lot about this idea of living brown, living well.
Yeah.
Like, living brown, being proud of who you are, being proud of our culture, being proud of our history. And part of that culture, part of that history is this hidden gem of wellness that a lot of our people don't get to experience because of everything we've talked about. But if we take the blanket off, if we look back, we'll see the foods, the practices, the connections to each other spiritually. We have all those ingredients for wellness. So
Absolutely.
Can live brown and live well, because sometimes I'm proud of who I am. And we sometimes uplift images of unwellness when we're talking about that pride. Sometimes it's like, I'm, no one can change me. This is how it's been. It's like, no, live brown, live well. And we're trying to those two ideas can coexist, and that's another way to kind of relish in all of the gifts that we have, not ignoring, all the issues, but making that other narrative just as strong, reconnecting to that narrative of brown wellness.
Yes. And we have incredible philosophies, in our background. The Toltec people, we lived 1,000 years in splendor. And our ancestors did 1,000 years, with the highest potential possible of humankind, right? With those philosophies. And before, not to put down the Catholic Church, a lot of us are Catholic, and that's where we find our solace and our healing, and that's wonderful. But before the Spanish invasion, we didn't have good, bad, good, evil. We had constructive, destructive energies. And destructive doesn't mean bad. We honored destructive in the wintertime when there's a lot of decay. We honor the vulture, that destroys necessarily. So constructive, destructive energies, what am I doing right now? Am I constructing something or am I destroying something? And if I am destroying it, is it to make space to plant new seeds? Right. So before good and evil, guilt and shame, that's what we had.
Yeah. And this is beautiful, by the way, because you all host regularly platicas, workshops, trainings where people can hear more on this sort of stuff. But you're talking on so many amazing, items. I mean, I just want to jump in every 2 words and say, wait a minute, you just said this. But Jessica, first of all, you mentioned trust. We need to trust our people. Well, we know, again, when our people are dealing with hurt and pain and trauma, it's hard to trust sometimes.
Absolutely.
But you yourself, even through this exchange that we're having right now, through all this just internet call, I feel like this spiritual connection, like an instinct from you. I don't know if it's from what you mentioned of identifying as a mother, but it just makes me want to trust you. It makes me want to believe that what you're telling me is the truth and there's good intentions to what you're trying to lead me towards, right? I mean, have you worked on this sort of stuff? I mean, where does that come from?
Well, you're asking a question based on your cosmovision. You, because you come from your peoples, right? The peoples that we're centering culturally in this conversation, right? So you are having an awareness and a cosmovision that you maybe didn't know you had a connection to, right? And so you are energetically connecting with, yes, I have done ceremonies. I do all the ceremonies for a very long time. I do moon dance and many ceremonies that pray for the well-being of our peoples, for humanity, for our Madre Tierra, for her blood, which is the water. So you're connecting to that. And that is how I intentionally show up to any space. And we are creating an Ome Teo. That's 2. Ome means 2. Teo means sacred energies. 2 energies coming together to create something. So me and you are creating Ome Teo. You and Manuel are, and me and Manuel always as a dualidad creating an Ome Teo. And then you with your listeners, all of us. So we're creating ometeos, energies coming together to create toward the well-being of our peoples, right? So you're connecting to all of that. And I intentionally make that ometeo with every person I speak to. Because, as the a Mexica philosopher and poet said, of course it was in Nahuatl, but translating to Spanish, al menos, and at the end of our lives, al menos dejemos flores, al menos dejemos cantos. At least I would have left flowers. At least I would have left songs at the end of my life. So when I speak, not that I'm afraid of conflict, right? No, we're guerreras, we're guerreros, we're guerreras, right? But at the end of my life, at least I know with my children, with my community, with all of my relations, I will have left flowers, I will have left songs. And that's what you're connecting to.
Yeah. And the other aspect about it that you're talking about is that our people are deeply, deeply spiritual people. I mean,
Yeah.
You think,
Absolutely.
I mean, gosh, I think about my grandmother, she recently passed, but I spoke at her funeral and I said that, when we were sick, she'd pray over us with an egg. And I remember when I would get healthy again, I'd ask my mom, I said, Mom, why did she get that? What's up with that egg? And I'm like 6 years old asking about this egg, right? And my mom will tell you that, oh, if she lights a candle, the candle burns extra hard and the flame is extra high, right? And then, our people talk about things like ojo, and I gave that item over there, and I had to go touch it so it didn't break or shatter or there'd be a disaster in the room, right? That sort of stuff. And it's kind of funny, but exchanging energy that you talked about, I mean, that is very real. I mean, no matter what you believe or don't believe, I mean, this is legitimate, right? And our people have always gone off how we feel when someone walks in the room, right? The vibes, the energy, the spirits, right? I mean, that is a part of earning someone's trust.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that is a crucial piece of how we navigate the world. You see it in our family all the time. We're articulated in a way that we usually don't, but yes, we're kind of making those invisible connections visible right now, as Jessica likes to say, by just talking about this. And that's part of, that's part of that wellness, that kind of that brown wellness, if you will, those strengths to tap into, is that, we have those connections to people. It's important. And we try to pick up on what someone is bringing into that room, or when we walk into that, and there begins the interaction before you even say words, right? Before you even, it's already begun.
And that's more information, right? As the people who have been marginalized and purposefully oppressed still are, our relatives are still in cages at the border, for migratory people migrating on their continent, criminalized and separated, causing complex trauma that will take generations to heal, right? So of course we have trouble trusting, right? Who's going to go into a therapy room and trust that therapist after that? That's why we do professional development for mental health providers, so that they can learn how to center culture in a way that doesn't cause harm, but in a way that heals the people.
Yeah, we do these community platicas so that we can connect to this, and we do some of the training for those mental health providers, professionals, and one way I try to orient them to kind of working with our community, because a lot of them are from our own community, because they don't get that in their school, right? Like, how do we connect to our own people? They don't want to come, to therapy, and we have all these stigmas. I'm like, all right, well, have you ever had an abuela, a grandma, or an aunt, tia, or somebody? And sometimes this connects across cultures too. And you go to their house, and the first thing they do is offer you something to eat. They just offer, like, oh, come in here, have something to eat, And then you're like, no, it's okay. And they insist. They're like, no, please, no matter what you do, they're gonna feed you, right? Doesn't matter if you say no. Doesn't matter if you're like, no, and
I'm full,
politely I just say thank you. No, please come in. Please have a seat. No, here you go. Don't worry. Like, I have it ready. Here you go. Sit down, eat. Okay. And I say, sometimes in our own generation and that individuality, even though we're polite, sometimes in our minds we get a little frustrated. Sometimes we're like, oh man, I just told Abuela that I'm not hungry. It's like, oh, they're ignoring me. They're just disregarding
They're
what I
not
want to say. They're
respecting
not
my
respecting my
boundary.
boundaries, but okay, I'm going to sit down and eat. And I like to say, I'm like, that's a very individual way of thinking about it, individualistic way, because that person that's doing it, it's not that they don't hear you saying that you're full. It's not that they're choosing to ignore you. It's who they are. It's who they are to be hospitable. It's their identity. For them not to do that would negate their whole identity. They wouldn't be who they were anymore if they didn't bring you that plate of food, if they didn't offer it to you. Because it's not about you, it's about who they are, right? Yeah. And then I say, imagine that person goes to you for therapy. Imagine that person goes to you for therapy. They're going to expect, not like consciously expect, not hold it over you, but the same type of hospitality. They're the ones that are going to be hesitant. They're the ones that aren't going to know how to, share to somebody else. Now you're the one that's going to have to insist on putting that plate of food and feeding them. But what you're feeding them is that therapy, right? The knowledge you have. And when they back away and they're like, oh, I don't know, or they're hesitant, or they don't say, you have to, no, come. It's okay. No, please tell me what you want. No, anything you want to say. Come back next time. I can't wait to hear what you're going to say. Doesn't matter what we talk about. No, come. We have to, embody that same type of help offering that we get when somebody comes in and they're hospitable. When we go into their house, when they step into our house, talking to the mental health professionals, you have to have that same type of hospitality. You have to kind of insist in an affirming way, not in an oppressive way, but in an affirming way. No, come, that we're going to do this. It's going to be okay.
Wow, that's powerful. They don't get that in school.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So
people.
Yeah. So inevitably, undoubtedly, somebody's watching this. Someone will watch a playback of this that is going through something, right? Whether it's some pain or hurt or trauma that they've recently experienced, that is looking to make a decision, that is looking for some answers and some words. If y'all could offer them any advice real time, whether it's, again, on a playback, I mean, what do you tell our people right now, right? If they're looking for some answers, if they're looking for a sign, if they're looking for some guidance out there, what could you drop on them?
Yeah.
So much. That comes up every time also. Do you want to answer first and then I'll...
Yeah. I mean, because it does come up all the time, and a lot of the time reaching out is difficult for our people. So, I'll start by kind of echoing what Jessica had said, which is trust what you're going through, trust, if things are off, if you're having difficulty, trust what you're going through. If something doesn't seem like in alignment, something's off, and you're kind of having this feeling like you might need to reach out, do that. And reach out to the people that you trust the most, even if it's just one or two people, because they'll be able to get a sense of maybe you've been up and down, but man, you've really been off for a long time. This is not typical. This is not usual. Think of the people that, if you can imagine, would be there for you, right? And think of the people around you, and think of the people that may not be as helpful, because sometimes we go to those people by habit, but before you reach out, play it out. Who's the people that are most likely to offer something for me? And who are the people that may actually, if I think about it, they usually kind of just wind up talking about themselves, after I go to those, then those aren't the people to connect with. And start with those relationships that you trust so that you can have a little bit of support. And then reach out if you think you need more. Reach out to a counselor or therapist, but look them up, do your homework. Everyone kind of has a page out there. Look it up, see what they're about. And I'll ask people to be brave, because the first time may not be a connection.
That's
That
true.
doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's just like going to our physician. You go to a physician, they offer you a prescription. Hey, doc, I'm still not feeling good. All right, let's try something different.
Yeah.
Right? We don't usually think, oh, medicine doesn't work, right? It's just like, oh, we haven't had the right fit yet.
Right.
And I think we need to think the same way about reaching out for like mental health supports. Like, you might not get the right fit the first time out. Call on that bravery, on that circle of support. You might take one or two times.
Mm-hmm. And I would add that I would go even talking to people who are even struggling more than that, to where they can't reach out. They can't look for somebody, because even looking for a mental health provider is very taxing.
Mm-hmm.
Do they take insurance? Oh, no, they're only out of pocket. Oh, I can't pay that much. Okay. Do I want to ask for a sliding scale? Oh, they're full and I can't get a point. That is very difficult. And then you make a connection and it's not the right connection. So still do it if you have the ability, if you have the energy, because it's important. Before that, though, if you're at the step before that and you just can't even really get up or do anything, the first thing is to be gentle with yourself. Those internal tapes that we tell ourselves, the shame, the guilt, why am I always messing up? Why can't I do these basic things? Why is my house messy? And, the kids are watching too much TV. Okay, that's where you're at right now. Be gentle with yourself, because if we're hard on ourselves, we can't get enough energy to get the help. And if you don't have a supportive system, if your family is unwell emotionally, in the sense that they will judge you, they will, hey, what's the matter with you? Get up. What are you doing? You're lazy. You're being a bad mother. If you're going to hear that, don't confide in those people, right? So then go straight to nature for now. Mm-hmm. Sit outside, sit with our Madre Tierra, walk on her, because you're caressing her with your footsteps. You're caressing her, and she's taking that pain from you. She's absorbing it for you. Take a bath, sit in that water, imagining it melting away, the blocks that need to leave you. Get rid of the things that don't serve you. Be like the trees that shed their leaves in the fall time. Be like the corn that sheds the husk. Be like the snake that sheds the skin. Shed what doesn't serve you, so that you can be well, so that you can have the soil to plant something new for yourself and for your family. So take the basic, go back to nature. Mm-hmm. Light a candle. If you can smudge yourself with some kind of hierbas, then do that. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself. At the base of everything, rest, drink water, eat as healthy food as you can, and exercise. Baseline.
Yeah, this is amazing work. I would argue that it's necessary work, right? The majority of our people need to be doing this work at some level. And so thank you for offering this and filling that void, because not a lot of people are doing what y'all are doing, I don't think, right?
I don't think so.
People
really, they're starting to here and there, but
yeah, no, not that many.
Yeah, I don't think I think what we're doing is really kind of holding that mental health and psychology piece with a general wellness that, as we said, kind of also includes our indigenous and our ancestral ways, and because I think we're trying to be responsive, Maximo, to what's out there. It's not so much like we're trying to come up with a model, like how do we want to do this and let's do this. It's like when we go out there and when we started talking a little bit about this and that, it's like the people were telling us kind of like what they wanted, and we just walk through our life like you do. We see our kids in school, we see the issues happening here or there. It's like our people are, these are the things that they're going through. So we're just trying to be responsive to what's out there, and so I think that's always like where we're going, where we cycle back to, like, are we responsive to what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and our people need more positive reinforcement. And it doesn't matter, how much money you make. It doesn't matter what side of town you live on. It doesn't matter what tax bracket you're in. We need this work to keep us grounded, to keep us on a level where we respect people, right? We don't want to get results who, again, someone told me that if you make over, $75,000, then you stop being brown, right? You start being something else, right? They mentioned that as a joke, but as you know, we have some of that, right? Where we have you kind of get where I'm going with that, right? It's an inside joke that you kind of forget about your people. You forget about your humbled beginnings and roots and our tias and our abuelas, right? That are just hardworking, humble people.
Right.
And so this is phenomenal work. So tell us a little bit more about where people can find information on these workshops, how they can get involved and participate, where they can maybe find you all on the internet or elsewhere.
Yeah, we have the best thing is, our website, which is razapsychology.org. And so that's one of those kind of inclusive terms we're trying to talk about, RAZA psychology, razapsychology.org. Go to our website. We're always updating it. Right now, we're kind of at a tail end of some of the things we've been doing, but we are going to do something in the next month on teens, and raising brown teens and what the issues that teens are, our adolescents are going through. We haven't scheduled it yet, but if you go to that website, that's the best way. You can also look at our Instagram handle, which is Chican Psych with the X at the beginning.
XICANPSYCH.
Yeah. Chican Psych. That's the best way to get a hold of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there is a lot, during these, so-called 30 days, right? We've been given the permission to celebrate our heritage. That's another joke. September 15th to October 15th. But there's been a lot of programming over these last 30 days that you see all over, right? We're seeing workshops, we're seeing award shows, we're seeing companies. I was watching Monday Night Football last night. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team that happens to have the biggest Mexican following, I would argue, maybe outside of Denver.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They had... the commercials and the event was brought to you by Hispanic Heritage Month, and they had Mark Anthony playing, music, Mark Anthony's music. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. But there's a lot of programming out there that's happening, throughout. I think the work that you all are doing has got to be at the table and is a necessary element of keeping us grounded, because we're starting, as you know, there's a lot of performative actions that are happening out there. People say they care about, Hispanic culture, but I don't know that they really do. We had a platica last week at the table speaking about our farm workers and our food workers, those that are preparing crops, and migrant workers and immigrants and things of that nature that are doing very difficult, taxing work. And it's like, okay, what are we doing to better the working conditions of these people, to pay them more, to treat them fairly, living and working conditions? So we can put Mark Anthony all we want on Monday Night Football, but that doesn't mean that our people are being served and being honored and respected, at least in my opinion, the way they should.
Right. Absolutely. I think we're a long way from it really affecting the larger masses of our people, this recognition. And one of the things that makes me think about is, I'll just say briefly, one of the things that I love about Black History Month is that it's Black History Month. And so they're a little interchangeable, but I think while we really kind of have so much to celebrate about our heritage, true, we always talk about not either or statements, but both and. Mm-hmm. That is true. And it's also true that, something like that, a good example of like Mark Anthony and the performing, while I love that on the one hand, when you think about heritage, it's easy for the mainstream audience to kind of just relegate that to music and food and dance, right?
Hats.
And it kind of gives, exactly. It kind of allows the larger social conscience to forget that we have a rooted history in this land, that we too have been part of so many movements and so much impact. And that goes away when you just think about the word heritage, not authentically, because authentically we know all that means. I'm talking like mainstream. It kind of relegates us to always kind of being these newcomers, these foreigners, these, that people tend not to value. We always know the value of people always migrating. We know that value, but so we, again, it's just that kind of that image, right? That's always portrayed.
So you would like to see it be Hispanic History Month, like Black History Month, until it doesn't have to be a month anymore, and all peoples can be honored and respected all year round. But for now, right, Black History Month, we'd like it to highlight that our history is a rooted history here on this land.
Right. And that's part of our heritage as well. Our history is part of our heritage. And then comes those contemporary issues that you're talking about. Because we know the historical struggle of the farm workers, then we can really feel like they're still struggling.
Really?
They're still having a hard time.
I mean, Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez have been doing that work for what? Over 50 years?
50 years. So then those contemporary real impactful issues, like we're still struggling, like we still have the same high school graduation rate. We still have, we're
still not graduating college. We're still having struggles with accessing healthy foods and waters.
Yeah. Right.
Insurance, mental health care. Yeah.
Which becomes more real, more tangible, because we'll see the rootedness of what we're still living in.
Yeah, and what makes it a little bit more disheartening is that it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, with the access to resources, the technological capabilities that we have, as advanced as we are as a civilization, we could really make some things change. We could really make some things happen if we wanted to, but it doesn't go that way, right? You all talked about sometimes, hey, getting involved with leaders, and you got politics and people that butt heads, and disgruntled people that are in charge to make decisions, and where did the dollars go, and capitalism and all of these things. And it's unfortunate, because we would love, I would probably feel more complete as a human being if I didn't have to say the masses of our people were not well. If I could say the masses of our people were well, man, I could sleep great at night. I would be living on the high life. Nothing else would matter to me if our people were well. I would feel so much more fulfilled.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's what we're continuing to move toward, because we have that unwavering belief that is possible, that it is possible for us to move toward that wellness. But it's not, as always, it's not going to come relying on, the supposed societal structures that are supposed to equalize things. We're not seeing that. So
that's not going to happen.
It's going to have to come from us, from the work that we're all doing, from that sense of resistance that, that I wish we didn't have to always have, but it's a powerful strength. Mm-hmm. And so our wellness is also going to have to be, as you always say, another form of resistance.
Absolutely. Being
like, let's show that we can do this.
And that's why, these things like you're doing, like having our stories out there, because the violence of erasure as a people, just having our stories completely erased from the conversations, that is a violence. That is one of the many violences and obstacles that our people suffer today. So I honor you and your crew there that is going through the work to have our voices as a people elevated.
Yeah, absolutely. And during this month, that's kind of what we've been doing. We haven't had a lot of internal programming, because as we've been talking about, we've been, fortunate enough. It's good that this month has been more about kind of doing things like this with you, Maximo. And what we're going to do tomorrow, it's kind of been kind of showing up to different places in the community and kind of sharing on other people's turf and other people's grounds, and kind of sharing a little bit about the work we're doing. So we've been kind of making the rounds
with our sisters, our brothers, our siblings, our family everywhere. Because again, the 4 pillars is family, community, identity and spirituality.
Yeah. Those are our 4 pillars that we say, like, we're going to tap into the wellness of our people. I say it to the therapists that I train, but we say it in general, like on these forums, is, strong sense of cultural identity. Boom. We know our connection to family, that collective piece. community. There's the community connectedness and the spirituality that we've talked about. I mean, those are the keys to our individual and our collective wellness.
Yeah, and I got to thank y'all again for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know how busy y'all are. I know y'all got little ones and family, and I hope they're well. And so if you're watching this right now, from wherever you are, we have a worldwide audience. We have people inside the continental so-called United States, people overseas, people that are watching. If you're watching this, if you're curious, give us a share, give us a comment. Don't be afraid. Someone's going to benefit by watching this, and we have a responsibility to uplift our people. Listen, I would love for us during this, if it's got to be Hispanic Heritage Month, whatever it is, that we say, you know what, we're going to make a change, and we're going to rise up, and we're going to do better by each other, and we're going to be better by ourselves. I would love for that to happen. And if perhaps this is a part of that conversation to spur more of that, then by all means, that's what we're here doing tonight. That's what we want to do. It's powerful work, and our people deserve that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. All of us together, man. All of us together doing each of our parts and just moving forward, as we always say, lifting all of us up together.
And so we only got about 4 minutes left on the show. And so, Manuel, I've got to have you give a shout out and speak to all the family up in Michigan, because I know they're watching and they're supporting. They're some of your biggest fans, and you probably don't even know it yet. So go ahead and speak to them. I heard y'all are making the trip up to Michigan next year for the family reunion. Did I hear that?
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
We want to go in July. And so for some people that I think we do pretty good on the Facebook page. And so my dad was Martin Samaripa. He was the youngest of the 12 siblings. I remember the last time I went up there for that reunion in July, I was 12.
Oh,
I was 12. Drove up with Theo Joe, who just passed away. He was the last of all the 12 to pass away. So our family went up with him. And it was great. It was great being around there with all the family, visiting Grand Rapids, Lansing. We went to Holland. And now
we can take our youngest, who will be 12 at that time.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. So I can't wait. Michigan always holds a special place in my heart. Always have known, our family up there. And anytime I meet someone up there, I was like, somebody up there, they're probably related, and I remember seeing, to meet Diachelo, in 1982, we went when my dad was still alive, and she was sick at that time, and we went to visit her before she passed away. And real special memories for a kid. Sometimes you think kids don't connect, but we remember all that. It was really special in my heart. So
you all have a really loving family. I mean, just from Facebook alone, I can always feel all the supportiveness and the cariño. Everybody's excited when we post something, and I'm like, I have got to go meet those people in Michigan.
Yeah, they would love you, Jessica. So we're sending them all our virtual hugs and big abrazos and kisses and stuff. And we hope y'all are well. But this is a part of that work, right? I mean, we can't connect to be in Michigan every day. We can't connect to be in Texas every day. We're going to do it here, right? We find a way. We find a way to support each other and to rise up and to continue to honor our parents, our grandparents through this amazing work. I'm very excited and proud of y'all for doing this work. It's a blessing to know y'all. It was even more of a pleasure to have y'all on the show tonight. We're going to make sure that we reshare this. We're going to get this to those who need to hear it, folks that, are just curious and want to know more about some of the amazing work, because our community is so broad and vast and just powerful. When you think about it, we've got so many people inside the community that are doing amazing work, and y'all are at the top of that list. Y'all are well known throughout the country as well. A lot of folks know y'all, so I'm glad we can connect here and do it tonight. We got about a minute left. I want to let y'all get the closing words, but I also got to ask Jessica really quickly, if you're a movie buff, because you mentioned Wayne's World earlier, so I got to know, what's your favorite movie?
Oh, you're going to laugh. Milagro Beanfield War. We watch it all the time. It's very old. Look it up. Well, I think it's on, Amazon Prime?
Amazon Prime. Yeah, Amazon Prime.
Salt of the Earth. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, I could give you a movie list.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Freddie Fender's in it. People know Freddie Fender. Directed by Robert Redford. It's fantastic. It's one of the.
It's old.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem. You know, it's hilarious. So.
I believe it. Thank you. So we got about 20 seconds. I'll let y'all wrap it up, closing words, and then we'll take it offline.
All right.
Well, we open always asking permission, right? And then we close always with gratitude ancestrally. So with permission of our ancestors and giving gratitude to our ancestors, to the guardians of the sacred place, to all of our hearts present, to anybody who needs to hear this support about our well-being. I hope I spoke in a good way that could bring some of that ometeo to each of you.
Ometeo. Likewise, I feel that spending time with you was a blessing, as you said. So I'm just leaving with a lot of gratitude and just want our people to always remember that we have legacies of wisdom and legacies of healing and legacies of wellness, and we need to tap into it more. It's a process. We need to start doing it.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, there it is. Have a wonderful night. We hope you're doing well and continue to do well and thrive. We'll see you next week right here at VodPod Media. Thank you so much, folks. We'll get you next week.
See ya.